Hello everyone, it's Ulises Hernandez here again with another vlog about school. And I am not gonna lie right now, this is my second take. While uploading the footage, some technical difficulties occurred, and for some reason, it did not save, and I have to do it over again, right? Anyways, this is why I don't use the script that much, because if I have to reread everything again, I would probably go insane. But yeah, so to start, the first question for today's final that I'm doing a vlog for music, um, it is what really is impressionism, and neoclassicism and impressionism as well. I don't know if I said that. I'm kind of mixing up my words right now. But anyways, what they really are and kind of comparing them and some composers and compositions in those ideas. And so I will start with impressionism. One of the composers is Claude Debussy. I really only remember his name because Debussy, right? Very interesting name. Um, Impressionism as a whole, it kind of stresses the points like a fluidity of the music, um, kind of stresses the tone color of the music and the atmosphere as well. Yeah, so just a little bit components of Impressionism. And so Claude Debussy, he was known as a talented rebel at the Paris Conservatory, Conservatory, I believe. Um, and yeah, so he was a very talented musician. Um, and one of his most famous works was I'm sorry, if I remember this off the top of my head, Prelude of the Faun. Let me check my notes real quick. Um, Prelude to the Afternoon of a Faun. My bad. Um, but anyways, we did listen to this song and we did see the play um, in our music class, and so I'll explain it to you right now. Um, so it kind of started with the Faun, which if you don't know, is a Greek slash Roman creature who is half goat, half human. More like three quarters goat, one quarter human, right? Human body, human face, goat horns, goat legs. Um, so yeah, so he kind of starts out, kind of taking a nap in the forest as satyrs and fawns do all the time, right? Who doesn't? And so the music is very calm, very dreamy like, and everything starts with, I believe, a flute with no accompaniment. The flute's actually kind of just playing very, very calm music, right? And then he wakes up, right? The reason why there are, I believe they are called dryads of the forest, tree dryads, right? Nature dryads. And he sees them walking, and guess what? There's a really hot one for some reason there. And he's like, I gotta wake up for this. So he gets up, he kind of, prances around. The music, the composition uses like staccato to kind of, right? Kind of presenting his clinking of the hooves. A lot of, right? Presenting his suggestive nature. You leave it at that. So yeah, it was a very suggestive composition. He was falling in love. It was a little bit PG-13 if you understood what it really meant, and it was a all around interesting composition, but it was very amazing in my opinion. I actually did like it, so it was cool. So yeah, that is impressionism, a little bit of that. So next we'll be talking about neoclassicism, and neoclassicism is kind of marked by stressing very, how do I say this, like balancing, I guess, and very clarity, and clarity of the tonality of the notes and everything. And neoclassicism was also heavily influenced by earlier music, earlier eras of music like classical Baroque music in the 20th century. While it wasn't exactly copy and pasting, it was more like copy and pasting into your own words, right? So they were still using components of both the early music and the 20th century music. So they weren't just copying it. Um, but yeah, so that is some of the neoclassicism of music. And one of the composers, I'm going to check my notes real quick because I do not know his name off the top of my head or remember how to pronounce it. He was Sergei Prokofiev or Prokofiev. I don't know. He was Russian, hard to pronounce for me. Um, but yeah, anyways, um, one of his pieces, um, his most famous one was the Classical Symphony Number 1 for violin, I believe, or Classical Symphony for movement. Yeah, Classical Symphony. Um, it had 4 movements. The first movement was kind of playful, right? Very playful, very everything. The second theme, it was more staccato. It's do 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 do. That's what staccato is, right? The dots next to the notes. Right. The development, it was started with the first theme, the first main theme, right, in a minor key instead of a major key this time, and the second theme in the development was also more solemn, right, more dark, more sad. That was all the information I was able to find about that composition. However, it was very interesting to listen to, and I personally, I like solemn music, like solemn classical music, and I love playing staccato just because it's just so like silly to play, right? Just do, 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 do. I don't know. I personally like it. It was fun for me. Next we have expressionism. Expressionism is stressing the feelings of emotions, right? Um, it's not really provoking. However, it is explaining. I don't know. It's hard to explain. I'll get more into detail it later. Um, stress is like the main subject, the emotional and the harsh dissonance, right? And so one of the expressionistic composers, um, let me check my notes again for his name, was Arnold Schroberg. Schroberg. He was Austrian German, I believe, and he was also Jewish. Um, one of his one of his compositions, was the Warsaw Pact, I believe it was called, or I'm sorry, let me check my notes real quick. The Warsaw, a survivor from Warsaw. I'm so sorry about that. I already did this before and it kind of just flew my mind. Um, the survivor from Warsaw, and so for this composition, it has a narrator. It is a cantata, I believe. It has a narrator. It has the male chorus. It has the orchestra, and it has what else does it have? I think that's it. I think that's it, right? And it is really talking about the mass genocide of the 6 million Jews, 6 million plus Jews in World War II, because this was during that era of World War II. And so this composition, the narrator was in the POV of someone, a survivor of the Warsaw Ghetto. And if you don't know what the Warsaw Ghetto is, it was a ghetto that the Nazis practically enslaved and forced the Jewish population to go into. Over 400,000 people, 400,000 Jews were killed in the Warsaw Ghetto. Very, very sad. I don't know, just a very dark time in humanity that um, he wrote a piece about, a composition about, and it was important for him and his people because, like I said, he was Jewish, because he kind of spoke out to it more, kind of told more about the world what it was, because some people didn't really know about it, which is okay, and they learned from this composition as well, and it's a very dark composition. It's in English and German and Hebrew. In German, well, first because he is Austrian, Jewish, right? The German, excuse me, my knees are killing me. Anyways, the German was mostly utilized by Nazis in the composition. The Nazis saying stuff to the Jews in very loud voices, very loud, angry voices, mean, right? Very scary. The English, it was used as the narrator used English mostly, and it was because English is his second language, I believe, that he has learned, and Hebrew because Hebrew is a little bit of throwback to him going back to his religious beliefs, and Hebrew is the language of those beliefs. Yeah, so that is expressionism. Very, if you do read slash see or listen to the composition that he made, you will be feeling very emotional, and not just because it's trying to provoke emotions, but because it is very emotional itself, right? And so some differences between impressionism, expressionism, and nationalism. I mean, neoclassicism. Sorry, wrong subject. um, so, like I said before, impressionism, that one does evoke emotion, and it's a lot more fluid as well in tone and form. Um, expressionism, like I said, it kind of is feelings, right? It it is feelings, expresses feelings. As a side effect, it does also provoke feelings as well, because who wouldn't be emotional by a lot of these pieces, right? And its form is usually fragmented, and neoclassicism is very clear, very objective, not really subjective, very objective. And yeah, so that is the first question of the final. Bear with me, I am trying my best. Yeah, and so the second question, I believe, was how folk music it was very popular, and how it kind of influenced slash how these three composers utilize folk music in America. Um, and so three um, the three composers were Ives, Still, and Gershwin. Apologies. Yeah, so we will start with Ives. He was American. He lived from 1874 to 1954. Um, he was sort of a virtuosic composer as a child. He was a child prodigy, right? While I personally do not believe he was to the degree of Mozart, he was very up there, right? He composed a symphony, made a symphony, I believe, at the age of 5 or 6, and he made opera at the age of 9. Very talented. When I was 6, I was like reading. I was not composing music. Um, so good for him. One of his most famous pieces was, um, gosh, I forgot the name. Give me 1 second. It was called Three Places in New England. Yeah, Three Places in New England. And in this composition, there is a segment of it that utilizes a memory of his childhood. Um, and so the type of folk music that he incorporated into his composition was American patriotism, march, band, um, very original American folk music. And in this way, he remembers like a Fourth of July, right, and National American holiday. Um, he remembers as a boy, he kind of saw two bands marching, and they're kind of right, right. They kind of collided against each other, and in that way, there's so many sounds, very different, right? They're like clashing against each other, dissonance against consonants, right? Constant. The keys more than likely are very different as well. Everything's the rhythms, right? Everything is kind of just clashing against each other. And he had an idea. He's like, "Whoa, what if I like use that in my music?" And he did, right? He did use that component in his music, and he was very successful at it. We did listen to it in class as well, and it's something you don't really see. And in that way, it's like it's not bad either. I'm quite fond of it. It's it's good. I like it, and that's how he incorporated, right, the American folklore, folk music into his own music. Yeah, and next up we have Gershwin. Um, one of his most famous, not one, the most of his famous pieces was Rhapsody in Blues, I believe it was called. Um, and if you have not heard that already, it's very popular. Even if you don't recognize his name, you probably have heard it before. And if you haven't, give it a listen. Very good. Um, he incorporated the folk music, right? The original jazz components and blues components into his music, right? Which originated from Black Americans. And in this way, he did not. his music wasn't considered jazz per se, right? It was jazz with classical music. It was classical music was jazz flavors. That's the way to put it right there. In that way, he did use certain aspects of jazz, right? The jazz, some jazz rhythms, some jazz melodies, some instruments from jazz as well, I believe. But it was classical music, um, and that is how he did incorporate that folk music, and how he was very successful. He was also a little bit of a ladies' man, right? Probably would have been a wife and kid, if he didn't die at a young age. Unfortunate, it happens. Um, the next composer we have is Still. Interesting name, Still. Um, he was, however, the first black composer to have one of his compositions played by a major American orchestra. That's amazing, right? And this composition, it was called Afro American Symphony. um, so in this symphony, he incorporated many aspects of his Black American roots, Black American folk music, right? Which includes jazz, blues, spirituality, spiritual music, church choir music, etc. A lot of that Black American, and he also incorporated some instruments, the bass banjo, I believe, or contra banjo, in his symphony, as well as jazz and blues and everything else. He was very successful after his composition was played by that first symphony, by that first orchestra. It was played dozens of other times within like weeks/months by other symphonies as well. And he was also the first black composer to have his opera um, played and how do you say it, portrayed by like professional opera, right? Which is really amazing as well. So yeah, that is the second question. The third question we have, I will kind of read from the script just a little bit from my notes, just because I don't memorize this question off my head, right? What elements from this course do you think helped your understanding of what it means to listen and understand music? I think mostly it has to do with really dissecting the musical pieces and really kind of paying attention to the form notation, to their tones, the tonality, right, to the textures of the music, polyphonic, homophonic, monophonic, etc., as well as the kind of where the music gets its influence from, right, from what era, and whether it's the new era or gets influence from other eras. As a musician myself, I already had a very basic up to intermediate understanding of all of these music theory um, and notes and everything. However, I never really utilize that when I'm listening to music or to new compositions. Um, so I have been doing that recently after I started this class. I'm not gonna lie, right? I kind of like, I just learned that in class. Is this song in sonata form? I did listen to a few classical pieces. I did get kind of motivated after class, although I did not stick with them. Personally, not my cup of tea to listen to every day, but every once in a while, not bad. But anyways, so yeah, I think that part, like, really taking notation, tonality, textures, and everything, it kind of made me realize, like, really what the components of music is, and help me better dissect and understand them. Yeah. The fourth question: what's your favorite musical era and why? Um, Personally, this might be a little bit controversial because it wasn't very popular back then. My favorite was the medieval era, right? Very church music, very jestery music, comedy, jester comedy, very Gregorian chant, which is a little bit earlier in that era, but very the Halo music. I guess that would be considered early medieval era, I believe, and just that type of music, it really interests me. I am also a little bit of a history nerd, so I've always been interested in that area as well. The ballads of the night, or I doubt that's actually song title, but you get what I mean. very interesting in my opinion, and that is why it's my favorite. I was very interested while learning about it. Castration is also pretty crazy. I did not realize that happened nearly as much as it did. That was very to learn, right? Um, Fifth and best advice to someone who would be taking this class: do your homework. And by homework, I do not mean discussions. Obviously, do those. I'm not saying not to do those, but specifically, I'm saying to do your McGraw-Hill unit homework. It takes a long time if you do it the last minute. I did it the last minute. I don't recommend it. Not a good idea to do what I did. I would recommend after learning about every single unit, immediately get home from school or at school as well if you're still there. Do it. 30 minutes to an hour, right? Um, it's not bad if you do one, every week, every 2 weeks, right? Just like 30 minutes. However, it is bad if you do them all at the same time. Probably taking more than 3 hours. Not a good idea. I do not recommend. So, yeah, that would be my advice. One piece of music that I would want someone, people to listen to: La Novela by Cuco and Boy Pablo. It is not a very unpopular song. I believe it has over 1 million views, which I guess in today's world would make it a little bit unpopular, but it's not like 20K views or anything on YouTube. However, in my opinion, perfection, right? Very, I don't know. It's hard to explain. You could listen to it in any mood you're in, right? It can make you sad. It can make you happy. It can make you feel both. It can make you stay at both. It can make you anything, right? Um, it's very beautiful piece. It's a little bit different than Google's regular music. I'm pretty proud of his regular music. Um, but when I first listened to it, I was expecting, his regular music. It was not. I listened to it, put my headphones in. I was like, whoa! It was something new to me. Um, very beautiful. Um, very beautiful song. I believe you should listen to. It is in Spanish. However, I do believe that even if you did not know Spanish, um, even if you cannot, really transfer what the lyrics mean to your head, you will still really enjoy this song. It's not just about the lyrics, how the lyrics are very beautiful too, but just the music, the tone, the orchestra, everything itself. 100% recommend. But yeah, that is my vlog for today. I'm sorry if I am running out of breath or seem a little uncomfortable, right? I'm moving a lot. Like I said, that is because I did have to retake this video. If I have to again, I will probably cry. So yeah, I'll if I have to take this again. Thank you very much for your time. I'll see you guys on the next one.